All right, everyone, get ready, because today we are diving deep
Deep.
into the world of AI and cybersecurity,
Yeah.
specifically how all of that is shaping the future of telecom networks.
It's a big one.
It is a big one, lots to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
To help guide our deep dive today, we have Saad Sheikh's February 2025 Medium article.
Okay.
It's called Building Trust in Data Governance and AI, Crafting a Secure and Reliable ML Framework.
Catchy title.
It is,
Mhm.
this article is really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we always talk about AI changing how we communicate,
Right.
but this deep dive, I think, will really highlight how it's also creating this whole new era of digital security
Yeah. And trust.
and trust.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever really stopped to think about
Mm-hmm.
how your data stays safe as it's like flying across networks?
At like the speed of light.
Exactly,
Yeah.
at the speed of light through
Sure.
all these different
Right,
channels.
right.
And could AI actually be what makes those online interactions even more secure?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is the question, so let's find out.
Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So Sheikh really kind of throws us right in the deep end
Okay.
with this, a pretty stark statistic.
Right.
Security attacks in the cloud era are increasing at a 16% CAGR, which is a compound annual growth rate.
Wow, that's a big number.
It's a huge number, and it makes sense if you think about it.
Why?
The scale of the digital world,
Uh-huh.
the move to cloud computing, 5G,
Yeah.
it just means the attack surface, the area that can be attacked, is just constantly growing.
It's like building a bigger house, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You've got more doors and windows to secure,
That's a good analogy.
right? It's not just the sheer number of attacks that's concerning.
Right.
It's also that the attackers themselves are upping their game.
Oh, for sure.
They're using AI now, too,
Exactly.
to make their attacks even more sophisticated.
It's a digital arms race.
Yeah, almost like a digital arms race, right?
Exactly.
And that's kind of scary.
It is a little bit, yeah.
So then how do we combat that?
Well, that's where it gets interesting
Right.
because AI is a tool that can be used for both good and bad, right?
Of course, yeah.
Like, while malicious actors might use it to make their attacks more potent,
Uh-huh.
the telecom industry is also using it
To fight back.
to defend.
So it's almost like a high-stakes chess game then,
Yeah,
with AI powering both sides.
it's a great way to put it.
So then how are telecom companies actually utilizing AI to, like, fight back?
Well, Sheikh points to Zero Trust Networks,
Okay.
or ZTN, as a really critical strategy.
VTN, okay.
Yeah.
So what's that all about?
Think of, like, airport security.
Okay.
Everyone goes through the same checks, right?
Right.
Regardless of whether they're, some frequent flyer or whatever their history is.
Doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter. Everyone gets the same treatment.
Yeah.
So similarly, ZTN throws out the old idea of this fixed network perimeter.
Okay.
It operates on the principle of never trust, always verify.
So, like, even if a device has been on the network before, you don't just inherently trust it.
Exactly. Every user, every device, every connection, you basically treat it as untrustworthy until it's proven otherwise.
So instead of just, like, guarding the front door, you're checking IDs at every single room.
Exactly.
Okay, that's intense.
It is, yeah.
So where does AI come into play with all of that?
Well, think about it. AI can analyze tons of data,
Uh-huh.
and it can do it all in real time.
Yeah.
So it can spot suspicious patterns
Okay.
and then enforce these dynamic access controls.
So it's like this hyper-vigilant security guard
Yeah.
who's constantly learning.
And adapting to new threats.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not like you just install some ZTN software and call it a day, though, right?
No, not at all.
Sheikh makes it pretty clear that this is more of an evolving framework, an ongoing process.
It's an entire philosophy.
Yeah.
It needs to be woven into the very fabric of the network.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it needs constant monitoring, evaluation,
Mhm.
adaptation.
Okay, so how does this all apply to, like, real-world problems?
Right, question.
Like, I think Sheikh gives some examples of how ZTN is actually tackling, like, telecom security challenges, starting with financial fraud,
Oh, right.
which, I mean, that's a huge problem.
Billions.
Billions of dollars lost every year.
Yeah, and it just keeps getting sneakier.
Really.
Take SymBox fraud, for example.
I've honestly never heard of that.
Basically, criminals use these devices, they're called SIM boxes. They
Mhm.
load them up with a ton of SIM cards.
Okay.
And they use that to route international calls through these unauthorized channels. So they're bypassing the fees that telecom operators charge.
That's,
It's a black market for phone calls.
it is. That's
Be
crazy.
pretty clever.
But also pretty crafty.
Yeah, but that's where AI can step in again.
Okay, so how do you even stop something like that?
Well, AI systems can analyze all the network traffic,
Hmm.
and they can spot these signs of SymBox activity.
Mm.
It's like a digital bloodhound sniffing out these fraudulent calls from the millions of legitimate ones.
Wow. So it can catch those really specific patterns.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
And it goes beyond just SymBox fraud, too.
Okay.
Like AI can also automate vulnerability management, which is...
So instead of like humans having to look through all this data,
Yeah.
AI can do the hard work.
Yeah, all the heavy lifting.
Make sure everything meets security standards.
Exactly. Think of it as an army of digital security guards tirelessly scanning the entire network.
Okay, so we've got AI catching fraudsters, locking down vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
What else can it do?
It can also look at user behavior.
Okay, how so?
So let's say you've got someone who's suddenly downloading huge amounts of data or accessing systems they've never touched before.
Right.
AI can pick up on those red flags.
So it's like a security camera that can read minds.
Not quite reading minds.
Like close.
It can recognize unusual patterns, let's say.
So it can kind of see intent.
In a way, yeah.
That's incredible how AI is like reshaping the whole cybersecurity landscape.
It really is.
But with all of this talk about AI protecting us, shouldn't we also be thinking about the AI itself?
That's a great point.
Like, what about AI being vulnerable?
That's critical.
Yeah.
And Sheikh really emphasizes that, too.
Shiggy.
We need to make sure that these AI systems are operating ethically and responsibly.
Right.
It's like you wouldn't give someone a powerful tool without proper training and
Exactly.
safety measures.
So it's not just building AI to protect us, it's about protecting the AI itself.
You got it.
Okay.
It's a two-way street.
That brings up a lot of really interesting questions
It does.
about data governance, ethical considerations, and the role of like open source solutions in building trust.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into all of that,
Yeah.
what are your like initial thoughts on AI's role in cybersecurity so far?
I mean, it's clearly a powerful tool
Mm-hmm.
with like immense potential,
Mm-hmm.
but it's important to remember AI is only as good as the data it's trained on,
Yeah.
and the humans who design and deploy it.
Right.
There's a lot of challenges to consider,
Yeah, there are.
and we'll definitely delve into all of that
Sounds good.
after a short break.
All right, we'll be right back after this quick message from our sponsors. All right, welcome back. We've been talking about AI and cybersecurity and how, it's important to make sure this powerful tool is used responsibly, ethically.
Right, and that's a point Sheikh really drives home in his article.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to get excited about all the cool things AI can do,
Uh-huh.
but we got to remember humans are still the ones, calling the shots,
Yeah.
and humans...
Humans make mistakes.
Exactly.
So are there any, like, ethical frameworks or regulations being put in place to kind of address that?
Absolutely.
Oh,
And
yeah.
these are really important, you
Yeah.
can think of them like guardrails
Okay.
to make sure that AI development actually benefits society as a whole.
Right. So it's not just, like, running wild.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. We don't want it to inadvertently cause harm or infringe on people's rights.
Right. And I know there's been a lot of discussion about that. Sheikh actually mentions the EU AI Act
Yes.
as an example.
A really good one.
Okay, but honestly, I've heard about it, but regulations can be so dense.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what makes this one stand out?
Well, it's pretty groundbreaking.
Okay.
It takes this risk-based approach. So
Yeah.
AI systems are, like, categorized by their potential impact.
So, like, different levels of risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And those considered high risk, things like healthcare, law enforcement, those face much stricter scrutiny.
So, like, different levels of security clearance almost.
It's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
You wouldn't want an AI making life or death decisions
Right.
without some serious checks and balances.
Definitely not.
Right. And the EU AI Act also addresses this idea of transparency and accountability.
Okay.
So developers need to document their AI systems. They need to be able to explain how they work, why they reach certain conclusions.
So no more black box AI.
Exactly. It's about lifting the veil.
Right. So it's not just, preventing AI from going rogue.
Right.
It's also about making sure it's making the right decisions in a way that we can understand and trust.
Exactly. Trust is key.
Yeah, okay.
And it's not just the EU taking this seriously.
Oh, so other governments are doing stuff too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like the U.S. has issued an executive order on safe and secure AI.
Okay.
and lots of other countries are developing their own guidelines.
So there's like this global recognition that this is important.
Yeah, there's a growing understanding that we need to be proactive
Yeah.
about shaping AI's
Yeah,
development.
we need to lay down the rules of the road now before it's too late.
Exactly.
And this is where Sheikh brings in this idea of open source solutions
Yes.
as a key element in building trust and accelerating the adoption of secure and reliable AI.
It's a big piece of the puzzle. Okay, I'm curious, how does open source actually contribute to this?
Well, open source is all about transparency and collaboration.
Okay.
So imagine this.
Yep.
You have a community of developers from all over the world
Okay.
working together on an AI project.
Uh-huh.
Everyone can see the code, everyone understands how it works,
Yeah.
and everyone can contribute to making it better.
Okay, so it's like the opposite of a black box.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about opening things up.
Okay, but then wouldn't opening up the code also make it easier for, like, bad actors to find vulnerabilities?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
But, the open source community,
Yeah.
they're really good at identifying and addressing vulnerabilities quickly.
So it's like more eyes on the problem.
Yeah, it's like a global immune system.
Okay.
Always on the lookout.
That makes sense.
Right. And this transparency also allows for more scrutiny from experts all over the world.
So it's like harder to hide anything malicious.
Exactly. It's harder for bias to slip through, too.
Okay.
It's a constant process of checks and balances.
And Sheikh actually mentioned some specific open source projects
Yeah.
that are making a difference in this field.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about some of them?
Yeah, he highlights Instruct Labs, which is this open source framework for building secure machine learning systems.
Okay.
It's like giving developers a blueprint
Yeah.
and a toolkit.
That's designed for security.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not just like a general framework. It's really built with security in mind.
From the ground up.
And that helps to create AI that's resistant to attacks.
Right. And then you have Granite models, which are these pre-trained AI models
Okay.
that have already been vetted for security and reliability.
So it's like a trusted starting point
Exactly.
instead of starting from scratch.
It saves developers time, reduces the risk of introducing vulnerabilities.
Okay, and I think you mentioned another one too.
Yeah, Trusty AI, which is really interesting.
What's that one do?
It provides tools for explaining AI decisions.
Okay, that's important.
It is, especially for those high-stakes situations we were talking about earlier.
Right, like healthcare.
Yeah,
You need to know why the AI made a certain decision.
exactly. You can't just blindly trust the output.
Yeah, okay.
And then finally, he mentions Podman AI Lab.
What's that?
It's a developer toolkit designed to make it easier to experiment with large language models, or LLMs.
Okay, LLMs.
Those are the systems powering things like, advanced chatbots, text generation.
Right, those are really powerful.
Incredibly powerful, but they come with their own challenges.
Not that.
So Podman AI Lab gives developers a safe space to explore them,
Okay.
identify potential risks before, deploying them in the real world.
So like a virtual sandbox.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's all about responsible development.
It sounds like open source is playing a really crucial role
It is.
in making AI more accessible,
Mhm.
transparent, and
Mhm.
trustworthy.
Exactly.
It's not just the technology, it's also about fostering that culture of collaboration and shared responsibility.
It's a community effort.
Okay, I'm really inspired by all this talk about, like, the potential here.
It's exciting.
It is exciting, but how does it all translate into, like, real-world impact?
That's the key question, right?
Like, can you give us some tangible examples of how these concepts are being applied to solve actual problems?
Absolutely. And that actually leads us perfectly into the next part of our deep dive, where
Right.
we'll explore some specific use cases.
Okay, so we're going to see how AI is making a difference on the ground.
Exactly. But first,
Yeah.
let's take a quick break to refresh our digital palettes.
All right, sounds good. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We left off talking about how all this cool AI stuff is playing out in the real world.
Right. Let's get down to those real world examples.
Yeah, Sheikh actually outlined some really specific zero trust network use cases.
Yeah. And we were talking about financial fraud earlier.
Yeah, a problem that just never seems to go away.
And it's not chump change either. We're talking billions of dollars lost every year.
Seriously, billions with a B.
Yeah. And the ways they're doing it, the methods, they're constantly evolving. It's really hard to keep up with, but AI is, I think, starting to change the game here.
Okay, you mentioned SimBox fraud before the break.
Right, so these guys, they have these boxes full of SIM cards,
Okay.
and they use them to route international calls illegally.
Oh, so they're basically stealing revenue from, like, the real phone companies.
Exactly, they're siphoning it off. It's a pretty lucrative scheme.
Yeah.
And it's hard to detect. It flies under the radar pretty easily.
So how can AI even help with something like that? It seems so, I don't know, hidden.
Data. It's all about the data.
Yeah.
AI systems can analyze, just massive amounts of network traffic,
Okay.
and they can look for patterns that humans would probably miss.
Uh-huh.
Like, let's say there's a sudden spike in international calls from a single location.
Okay, that sounds fishy.
That's a red flag, right? And AI can pick up on that and then alert the security teams to investigate.
So it's like having an AI detective on the case,
Uh-huh.
just constantly watching for anything suspicious.
Yeah, constantly patrolling the entire network.
That's pretty cool.
It's not just about reacting after the fact, though.
Oh, so AI can, like, prevent fraud too?
In a way, yeah. Think about vulnerability management.
Okay, remind me what that is again.
It's about finding and fixing weaknesses in your systems before they can be exploited.
Right, like plugging the holes before the water leaks in.
Exactly.
But that seems like such a huge job.
It is. Networks these days are so complex.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to manually check every single line of code for security flaws.
Oh, yeah, I can't even imagine.
It's almost impossible, especially with how fast technology changes. But AI can automate this process.
Oh, so it can just scan for vulnerabilities all the time?
Constantly.
Okay.
It can scan for known vulnerabilities, and it can even predict where new ones might pop up.
So it's like having an AI security consultant always on call.
24/7, always looking for cracks in the foundation.
That's really impressive.
It's essential these days. Hackers are always coming up with new ways to attack, so this helps security teams stay ahead of the curve.
Wow, okay. So AI can detect fraud, manage vulnerabilities. What else?
Well, it can also analyze user behavior.
Wait, so it can like tell if someone's about to do something bad, like in that movie Minority Report.
Haha, not quite predicting the future, but it can definitely recognize unusual patterns.
Okay, like what?
Imagine an employee suddenly starts accessing files they've never touched before, or downloading a ton of data.
Okay, yeah, that would be weird.
Right, that would raise a red flag,
Uh-huh.
and the AI system could alert the security team to take a closer look.
So that could help catch insider threats. I know that's something companies really struggle with.
Absolutely, it's a very powerful tool for that. And then finally, there's something called predictive security.
Okay, what is that?
This is where AI uses all that data it's been analyzing to try and forecast potential threats.
So it's like an AI oracle, kind of predicting the future of cyber attacks.
Haha, kind of, yeah. It's like having an early warning system, letting you know where the next attack might come from.
That sounds super useful.
Mm.
But, I mean, how accurate can those predictions really be?
They're getting better all the time.
Hmm.
The more data these AI systems have, the more they learn from past attacks.
Right.
And this foresight, it lets security teams strengthen defenses in key areas.
So they can be ready for an attack before it even happens.
Exactly. It's about shifting from a reactive approach to a proactive one.
So I guess in a way, AI is not really making networks more secure, it's also making security teams better at their jobs.
Absolutely. And it's really just the tip of the iceberg. I think we'll see even more innovative uses for AI in cybersecurity in the future.
It's amazing to think about all the possibilities, but
Yeah.
as we've talked about throughout this whole deep dive, it's really important to make sure we're developing and using AI responsibly.
Couldn't agree more.
Things like open source, ethical frameworks, and focusing on data integrity, all of that is crucial for building trust in this powerful technology.
Yeah, as we hand over more and more control to AI, that transparency and accountability and continuous learning, it's all super important.
Yeah, it's like we're all in this together, figuring out how to make this work.
We are. It's a shared responsibility to shape this future where AI enhances security, protects our privacy, and builds a more trustworthy digital world.
Well said. And for anyone listening, keep exploring this, keep asking questions. There's so much to learn, and we're all on this journey together.
Yeah, keep learning. The future of AI is really in our hands. Let's shape it wisely.
Great point to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.